come in the studio today for a new little tip and trick from Penny's Pointers. So I teach a lot of English paper piecing classes, as some of you may know, and when I teach them I like to show all kinds of different needles and stitching techniques and tools that you can use, because the idea here is that you fall in love with English paper piecing, or that you learn a little bit to put in your quilter's toolbox again, and that you find the method, either the stitching method or the thread or the needle or everything that's right for you, so that you have success when you're doing that project. Because there's nothing worse than thinking about the mentality of trying to finish something completely by hand and not using your sewing machine. But if it's not fun and you're not enjoying it, then it's probably never going to get done. So I want to demo today one of the stitches that I teach in my class, but I want to demo it for two separate reasons, because it's a really good invisible stitch to use in your English paper piecing, but it's also got another cool little tip that I want to show you. So I've set up a demo for, I'm going to try to do this with my dry, cracked hands from this spring's weather, although I don't know if you can call it spring weather. It just snowed yesterday. It's April. But anyway, ignore my dried, cracked hands and just pay attention to the stitching. But I've set up a demo to do two things today, and I'd like to show both of them to you. Let me show you my little friends. Here's my little chicken friends. Aren't they cute? So these are my little chicken friends, and my little chicken friends were made by a friend and brought to me at the show, and I talked to my friend about using an invisible stitch to close these suckers up. So let me show you how they were whip stitched together. See here, you can see the closing stitch right there on the bottom of the chicken. So we're going to take that stitching out, and I'm going to show you how to stitch it up so you can't see that stuff on the bottom. So let's give it a whirl, shall we? Okay, here we are. I'm doing my best to stand behind the camera and look here. So here we are with my EPP project. I'm sewing two 5-pointed stars together. You see I've already connected them, and I have a pink piece and a white piece, so it's really easy, hopefully, for you to see exactly what I'm doing with the camera. And then I've put black thread in here so you can see the black thread. Okay, let's see what we're gonna do here. So right now, I don't know if you can see, but I have a black thread that's coming up out of the seam that is in the pink side of the fabric. You see, instead of whipping across the fabric, what I'm actually doing is running the thread in the fold under here so that you can't see it. So my thread is actually coming right up out of the pink side, only one side. And I want, this is called the ladder stitch, so I want my stitch to come straight across, perpendicular. So I'm going to go directly across from where the thread's coming out of the pink, but I'm going to go into the white, and then I'm going to make my stitch, which is going to be about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to come up and pull that thread. Now let's see what the thread does when I pull it. Well, other than get caught on itself, which is crazy. Where are you? There you are. There's the end. Okay, so here's the stitch. You can see that little stitch right there. There's the black stitch. And now my thread's coming up in the side of the white piece. So now I'm going to go directly across into the pink, right in that top seam, and take my stitch, and let's pull my stitch, and then I'm going to have a black stitch. Now you see what's happening over here. I'm having these just look like little rungs on a ladder. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm now in the pink. I'm going to go directly across into the white, and I'm going to go up, take my stitch in my folding seam right there, and come up out of the other side. Now I'm using Aurifil black thread. It's 40 weight, I think. 40 weight or 50 weight thread. So I'm using really thick thread. I'm using an embroidery needle, so I'm not even using a stitch needle. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want this to be about the size of the thread or the size of the needle. I really want it to be about the stitch. So I'm in the white, I'm coming straight across into the pink, and I'm gonna take a stitch. Oops, come on. And I'm gonna come back up, pull it again. All right. Now you can see my ladder rungs. These are my stitches right across the top. Now, with the ladder stitch, it tends to be a fairly loose stitch. So I'm going to take my thread and I'm just going to pull just a little bit, not so much that it puckers the paper or anything like that, but I'm just going to pull it a little bit tight. And then I'm going to open up and I want you to see my stitches. You see? Can you see my stitches? That's right, you can't see my stitches. Even though this fabric is white and this fabric is pink and I've used a black thread, you can't see those stitches because the stitches themselves are hidden in the folds of the fabric. And I can sew all the way up here and you won't see my stitches at all. So that is called the ladder stitch. And it's a really, really neat stitch. If you're worried about anybody seeing your stitches or anything like that, that's a really good choice to use in your English paper piecing. So let's see how else I might use this stitch. Okay gang, here are my cute little chickens. Again, here's my little gray chicken with his whip stitch clothes. And what I've done is I've taken my teal chicken and I've gone ahead and clipped those stitches out. It's back open again with the fold. And then I'm gonna take some black thread and I'm gonna stitch this chicken up and show you how the ladder stitch works. So let's get my thread over here. And my black thread, oops, wrong one. Here's my black thread and I'm gonna come up into, bury the knot and come up into the edge here of my chicken. Let's get my knot inside there so you can't see it. And then I'm gonna go right over top of where my stitch was on the other side, and I'm just gonna travel into the seam with my thread. Not gonna worry about it showing. I'm just gonna go into the opposite side, up into the seam, up into the fold, and get my other stitch. And you can see my ladder is starting to take shape. Right up into that fold. My ladder stitch is starting. See my little stitches right there? Now this one's already been whipped shut, and so it was closed and it was told to stay closed, so it's left a nice little folded seam there for me to follow. And I can put those stitches right up in there. Can you see my little black ladder going across? So now I'm gonna go straight across with this one and up into here. And if I'm not sure where I am in the grouping here, see my little ladder? I can pull closed and already I see it's starting to get completely invisible. Down here by my thumb is where that stitch is, that little black stitch, and all the rest of my stitches are really invisible. Just got the holes left over from where that whip was. So I'm gonna keep going. Now I can see where I am, so I'm gonna take another stitch up in here, pull, oops, uh-oh, somehow I got looped on myself. That's okay. Can go right back through here. There we are. And another one. There we go. And directly across up into that fold. Look at that. And then again, you can see my ladder, little tug, and look at that. It's just going completely invisible now. So let's keep going. My ladder directly across from where my needle comes out. I want to go in. Oops, this one's being a booger. And up on the other side. Directly across. You see how my thread is traveling into the fold of the other side. So the thread itself, the stitch, I guess you'd say itself, is really invisible. So the only thing I have coming out is that little ladder. And when I tug, it's invisible. Now, if you pull too hard, it'll start to pucker a little bit. But if you just tug a little, and it closes right out. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? So it's exactly the same stitch that you'd use for EPP. And if you can see it, it means you just haven't tugged it closed. And so it works great if you're gonna do, you know, these little stuffed pin cushions. You can make, using a pentagon shape, you can use, you can make a nice little hand-stitched cloth ball for babies. I think those are really great. And you can use the ladder stitch to stitch the pieces together, and then you can stuff the ball and use the ladder stitch to close it up. Now I'm going to come up over in here a little bit just so I catch that little bit of fabric that I pulled out before. I'm going to tug a little bit so that my stitches disappear into the seam. All right. And then I'm going to, before it closes completely, I'm going to knot it. I'm going to put a little knot in. A little knot. If it lets me pull the knot. Just a little knot. Holding it shut. Just go back down underneath there and come out another place on the chicken. Pull that knot in. I've knotted it closed now, and I've come out in another spot on the chicken. So I'm just gonna clip that thread, and now my chicken is all closed, and other than the leftover holes from the previous stitching, I think that looks pretty good, and done with black thread and an embroidery. Hi, Mr. Chicken. All right, so that's my tip. So what do you think, gang? That's a pretty cool little tip, huh? Check out my chicken. See the bottom of this one and the bottom of this one? Look at that. And this guy, you know, he's just a little wrinkled, but we hit him with an iron, you'll never see, but the difference is a really big deal. And then again, over here with my piece here, no stitches. Pretty neat, huh? So give it a try. Try it with your needle and thread and your English paper piecing, or try it with one of your stuffed toys, your pin cushions, and let me see. Send me pictures of what you finished. And so for those of you who've taken the EPP class and you just can't remember exactly what I said to do with the ladder stitch, now you know how the ladder stitch works and you've seen it in action. So until next time,